The Miami Hurricanes might only have to go 21.4 miles up the road to find their next defensive coordinator.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno, your host. I'm a University of Miami alumnus, longtime South Florida sports radio vet, and contributor to allhurricanes.com. And thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On to get started today. So the newest name that's come up on the defensive coordinator hot board now is Miami Dolphins linebackers coach Anthony Campanile. Now, there's a few logical things about this with Campanile. Number one, Mario Cristobal reportedly went after him last year for this same position before ultimately hiring Kevin Steele. So the lines of communication there had been open, okay? And of course, about Campinale, he's literally working 21.4 miles up the road at the Miami Dolphins facility as the Miami Dolphins linebackers coach. Campanile, he's a family man. He's got a wife and I think 3 children. So maybe the idea of taking a different, possibly better job without having to actually leave town to do it might be appealing. Remember the Miami Dolphins situation now on the defensive side. I doubt Campanile's job is guaranteed with the Dolphins right now since they just hired a new defensive coordinator in Vic Fangio. We're not sure what Fangio wants to do with his staff. And Campanile, he's a hot name. He actually interviewed for the Miami Dolphins defensive coordinator job before they ended up hiring Vic Fangio, who's one of the most accomplished defensive coordinators out there. So Anthony Campanile, he's a Paisan, which I love, from New Jersey. Could he end up being the next Miami Hurricanes defensive coordinator? Let's bring in legend and great friend of the show, Larry Bluestein, our boy Blue. Blue, good morning. How are you, sir?
Good. How you doing, Alex?
I'm doing very well. And Blue, when I was looking over Campanile's resume last night, I figured who better to talk to about this guy than Larry Bluestein, because Campanile, who's, he was a DC for a time at Boston College, worked at Boston College, worked at Rutgers, worked at Michigan before he got to the Dolphins. But his work at Don Bosco Prep in New Jersey as their defensive coordinator was pretty legendary at the high school level. Nobody knows more about high school football than you. And Don Bosco, it's a powerhouse up there in Jersey. What do people in those high school circles say about this guy?
Yeah, well, I remember when he first started in high school in Fairlawn, New Jersey, and then he moved on to Bosco as the defensive coordinator, and then he actually became the offensive coordinator at Don Bosco as well.
Hey, maybe he could do both jobs down here.
Yeah, so he figured, what the heck, local guy. He's from Fairlawn, New Jersey, which is right down the block from Rutgers, and that's where Mario's ties began with. And the great thing is every name that pops up, I think all these wannabe gurus and guys who want to break every story in the world, what they do is they trace back to everybody that Mario's worked with. And you take a look at, on the offensive side, Nussmeier, who was at Alabama for a second when he was there. And so it's almost humorous for all these names that are coming up. But the whole thing, with somebody like Campanile, he worked so hard to get to the NFL. I'm not so sure he's willing to leave. I mean, I just think that, and I'm sure that Coach Mike McDaniel is going to have some input, even though, you get a guy like Vic Fangio, who's certainly had his share of people around him throughout his great career. But somebody like, and you take a look at Campanile, he wasn't a terrible coach. I mean, people, that's one thing that McDaniel's going to say. Well, you know what, give him a year and see how you like him. And I think that's the only stumbling block. I just think that You're looking at a guy, as you said, who's a family man and probably wouldn't want to leave the area as he's trying to put down some roots in an area like this. But I'll tell you, you take a look at the situation in any of the situations, but yes, he would be a great coach. Will he get along with everybody? You see, that's the thing that people don't realize too, Alex. I mean, anybody that they hire on the offense or defensive side are going to have to, pretty much get together with a lot of these people they've never worked with before, and in a short period of time. And I think in your opening, you made a key, a statement. 3 weeks to the opening of spring, and you don't think that the person that comes in is not going to have a crash course. That's why I side with Charlie Strong, because of the fact that he's already on campus.
The perfect segue, Blue. I wanted to get into that, and I wrote a column about this at allhurricanes.com. I talked about this on the show yesterday. Charlie Strong, he checks off so many boxes because not only is he uber qualified for this job. I mean, he's overqualified for the job he has right now as linebackers coach. He's been a successful defensive coordinator. He's been a head coach. Some places successful, some places not so successful. He's already on the staff, so there's continuity there. I like the Strong idea.
Well, only for the reason that you have limited time now. And I think that, obviously, I don't, even though that all the fans and everybody, we want to get rid of Kevin Steele. I don't think that was Mario's plan. I really don't. I just think that he was all set to go in with him into this year, and then all of a sudden someone threw him a curveball. And, I talked to a friend of mine the other day, and we came up with the idea that you get Charlie Strong in that position, and you're going to save a spot because he's a linebacker coach and he's still going to stay there. And I say, and I don't care what anybody says, I hire Jason Taylor, because what's wrong with having a guy like Jason Taylor on staff going out to recruit? His knowledge is paramount. I mean, I watched it firsthand. Most of these high school, these people that do recruiting, they've never seen him in action. I've seen him for 4 years at St. Thomas Aquinas as a defensive coordinator. I watched him as a position coach. He completely turned around Nick Bonito's career. Completely. People don't have and it was against Bosco of California. He just showed him a couple of moves and then stayed with him. And that's why you had all those guys transferring from Heritage and those schools to work with Jason Taylor. And I mean, the guy's not going anywhere. He's down there. I think he would relish the opportunity to be on staff and to be one of those guys that could go out and recruit. I mean, he's an analyst right now, but you know what? And everybody that talks to me right now, they say he's like somebody you can't hold back. So when he's out there and he's teaching just like he's getting $1 million, because that's his makeup. He's not a guy that's just going to sit around and be a figurehead. And I came up with that, the other day thinking, I said, you know what? What's wrong with Charlie Strong? I've known him for 25 years. He's an honorable guy. He knows what it takes. Being a head coach, he knows how to, he knows what the head coach is thinking. And that's my point. You bring in that little combination, plus you have still, guys and, why would you look to break up anything and bring in a new guy who just may be iffy? I think it does more harm than good to bring in somebody at this point, because they're going to have to do a crash course, and that crash course is not going to be easy, especially on a defense last year that was not good. So to me, I say you keep what you have. You're fresh with the continuity. Charlie Strong is not like a Gaddis. He listens to everybody. He will take in, he's beyond that, where he's, it's my ship and what I say goes. He's way beyond that. And I think that all the coaches on the defensive side of the ball would welcome and relish that, believe me.
So on the other side, I want to talk about the offensive side of the football and see maybe what's cooking at offensive coordinator. But a couple of quick notes on the defensive side. We bring up Anthony Campanile's name because he has now become a new name in that hot board, right? I've seen 24/7 and On3 both reporting that he's a person of interest for this job. And on Charlie Strong, I co-sign 1,000% with everything Larry Bluestein said. And, there is a report from our pal Gary Furman at Kane Sport that apparently Charlie Strong has a hard offer from Alabama to be an assistant over there. So if you don't promote him, you might not even be able to keep him if that is really the case. So we will talk about the offensive side when we come back. What Miami does at coordinator. Plus, I want to pick Blue's brain on some of the top quarterback prospects in the class of 2024, because I know Miami wants to bring in one of these guys in their recruiting class next year. So keep it locked, my friends, right here to Locked On Canes. FanDuel, guys, I hope you're taking advantage of all the opportunities this week with our friends at FanDuel. We're so excited about our new sports betting partner because they're the number one sports book in America, FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better, guys. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. Download FanDuel now so you can bet Super Bowl 57 with a no-sweat first bet. You'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from the money line, point spreads, who will score a touchdown. And guys, when it comes to the Super Bowl, my favorite thing are those player props. And I'm leaning to Philly -1.5 here. I'm leaning to it. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, and it's easy to use. And best of all, you can get paid your winnings instantly. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/lockedon to claim your no-sweat first bet for Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. So, Blue, on the offensive side, I know Mario Cristobal keeps this stuff very, very close to the vest. Within the past week, the two names that have been most prominently floated have been late last week. It was Doug Nussmeier. And then over the weekend, Jason Candle. And there is history there because Mario tried to hire Jason Candle for this job a year ago, but he didn't want to leave his head coaching job at Toledo then. I don't know if he wants to leave it now. There were reports that Candle met with Mario and even Dan Radakovich over the weekend. So if that's the case, Blue, it's already Tuesday and nothing's happened here. I'm a little bit worried maybe that if Candle was offered the job, maybe he's going to turn it down again. Anything you can share on the way that this offensive coordinator job is, this search is shaking out?
First of all, talking to some people up in Toledo, and because they recruit heavily down in South Florida and throughout the state of Florida, the move doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make any sense because of the fact that he's a head coach right now. I don't care if it's at a lower level or not. He's more apt to be a head coach and get the next job than him being a coordinator, at a program, especially on the offensive side where you come in and there's no certainty. I mean, I think it's a risk for him in his career to be at Miami. But Nussmeier makes a lot of sense. They've had brief history at Alabama. Here's a guy who did real well at Florida. He's a quarterback-oriented guy, so that means you don't have to go around getting a quarterback coach too. I think at this late stage, and it is late, and I don't think people understand that by just pulling these names out of a hat, that they're going to work. I always look at this fact, and that's why I said on the defensive side, you know what? You know what you have in Charlie Strong and the people that are here. I mean, if we're talking December 10th, and then everybody's leaving, and then you go, okay, let's make a decision now because here's my point, and we're going to talk about the quarterbacks, and think about it. If you are a quarterback, why would you come here right now? I mean, you don't even know what's going to go on. You don't know.
You have no idea who your coordinator, your position coach is.
What are you going to sell? Oh, we got weather. I don't, but what are you going to sell? You don't have a quarterback coach. You don't have a coordinator. So that's what makes sense to me. Because if, let's say, they ink somebody like Nussmeier by the middle, end of this week, and then all of a sudden he goes out and they go, hey, we've got a coordinator that's quarterback friendly. That here, go look at his career. He's always NFL been a wide open type of guy.
Yeah. What do you think? when I brought up the name Doug Nussmeier last week, people were like vomiting, like in our comments, like they hate this guy. I guess you mentioned his time at Florida. Their offenses didn't score a lot at Florida. Like they were ranked mostly in the 100s in total offense those years. So Nussmeier, he's a guy, he's held a lot of really, really big jobs over the years, Blue, and his work in the NFL has been very respected. But do you understand that when Nussmeier gets brought up, fans get very upset? Do you think that that's an irrational response?
Well, they also got upset at the name Gaddis too. I mean, so to me, that's been, you can't not. If you know Mario Cristobal, he doesn't care what we think. He doesn't.
That's true.
Not even close. He doesn't even, he'll ask people, hey, do you know this guy? But he's making the decision. It's his ship. He understands that he has all those personalities that he has to kind of juggle. And believe me, he doesn't want to bring in somebody that nobody will respect or nobody's going to give an opportunity. So, if they bring in somebody totally different over the next couple of days or so be it. But right now, like I said, those two, from offensive standpoint and defensive, I wouldn't be very upset if they brought him in there. And I don't understand, because was it so great last year? Who cares? They can bring me and you in. It'll be an upgrade.
Especially with the talent, especially with the talent getting better, with the way the offensive line's getting better. I will volunteer you and me to be co-OCs next year.
You bring up a good point. You said, well, he didn't do very well here. He didn't do very well there. But you know what? If he goes to Alabama, just like Steele, they're going to be world beaters. And everyone goes, oh, I told you. But look at the talent. And you know what? Anybody could coach when there's a lot of talent there. You look at Miami's situation, there's not a whole lot of older talent now, veteran talent. They got a lot of young kids. But so the guy that you have to come in has got to be somebody who's dynamic on both sides, or somebody who's very familiar with the situation. And I know for a fact the kids really respect Charlie Strong. They do. And I don't care what anybody wants to say it. Oh, he's 68, whatever. Oh, he's getting older. Who cares? Who cares? He's not going to be there forever. But what he's going to be there for is for a time to try to get this ship moving, and then use a lot of younger coaches around him who will drink this in. And when he decides to move on and retire or whatever he's going to do, then those guys will be ready to move in. And Mario Cristobal is going nowhere. So all those people think, well, Jason Candle is going to come down here and he thinks he can get the Miami. No, it ain't happening. That's why the whole thing is he's got to hire people who are good, but at the same time looking to move on, down the line, because it's just the way it happens. I mean, this isn't the old days of Virginia Tech where you have the same coaches for 14 years. It's just not happening anymore. You look at Alabama. They've changed coaches every single year for the last 12 years. So, in some form. So that's the nature of where we're at. If you're really good, you get an opportunity to coach at a smaller school, a group of 5 school or whatever. It just angers me that people just start talking without ever thinking what's going to happen down the line, Alex. I mean, the big picture is what this is all about. Not somebody's going to come in immediately. Oh, I don't like this guy. Well, you know what? To me, Miami's not in a position to start judging. Believe me, they got to come in with, and I totally am. Every dang time I see that Mario Cristobal, I know what he is. I know what he's all about. And we talked about this earlier. He stung in those press conferences. You could see on his face, and he doesn't want to be in that situation. So what he's going to do is going to hire the person that's going to be best for the program, and not just because the fans don't like him or like him. And that's just the way it is. And you know what? In some schools, when you're a private school and boosters dictate a lot of stuff, because they're writing big checks. Mm-hmm. He made it known really, really early that if you're going to hire me, you listen to what I say, not what some guy was told by a fan. Hey, you got to get rid of this guy. Or you got to make that. Believe me, nobody's going to dictate this football program but him. And that's why I say I'm not panicked. I think all these people are panicking. He's going to choose a guy that's going to be best for him, and it'll be soon. It has to be because, even he, as much as he doesn't want, to rush into things, have to understand that they get started in 3 weeks with spring. And that's supposed to be a time where you set the table for the summer.
That's right. All right. So I want to, it is going to be hard to recruit quarterbacks without a quarterbacks coach and an OC right now, but I want to talk about some of the hottest names for the class of 2024. Plus, got to give props to the Hoops team. They beat down Duke last night.
Killed them.
That wasn't a win. That was a baptism. Like they destroyed the Duke Blue Devils. So I cannot wait to talk about that right here on Locked On Canes. And I can never wait to talk about Built Bar. Guys, if you're looking for a delicious treat, but you don't want all the fat and calories, you got to try a Built Bar. We just got through the holidays. I've been trying to eat healthier this year. I know a lot of you have as well. If you're like me, you don't want to compromise taste when you eat healthier. I've got just the thing for you. You got to try Built. With Built, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously. They're so delicious, you're not going to even believe that they're good for you. They're perfect for your New Year's resolution. I just had a cookie dough chunk puff about 10 minutes before we started taping this. What makes Built so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right. And they come in unbelievable flavors like those cookie dough chunk puffs, churro, peanut butter brownie. I'm not sure how Built does it, but yeah, these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. Only 130 calories, only 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. And you don't need to wait around now to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering your Built bars at Built.com. You can still do that with our promo code LOCKEDON15 for 15% off. But now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart or Sam's Club today and grab a 13-bar box with hit flavors like brownie batter and churro. You can thank me later because I love me some Built bars. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. Make sure you make Locked On College Basketball your second listen with experts Andy Patton and Isaac Shade, taking you through the college basketball landscape in 30 minutes or less and doing an incredible job. Available free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, Locked On College Basketball. We're going to talk about basketball in a moment, but first, Blue, I know Miami wants to bring in one of these stud 2024 quarterbacks in recruiting. The names that they seem to be hot on the trails of. Air Noland out of Georgia, Langston Hughes, perfect quarterback name, by the way. If you can get a guy named Air, the NIL opportunities are endless down here. They also like Michael Van Buren, no relation to the old president from a couple hundred years ago.
You never know.
and another one that they like, who's an Alabama commit, but Miami's in constant communication with Julian Sayin. So what can you tell me about some of these quarterbacks that Miami is after?
Well, I got a chance to see Van Buren and Sayin at the tryout for that Raw 7-on-7 down here, and somebody that I believe that John Ruiz is backing now. So that may be a good sign. Both of them are spectacular. I mean, you can't say enough about them. Good size, quick releases, prototype guys that Miami's looking for, no doubt, upper tier type of kids, and certainly somebody you build your program around, obviously. To me, both of them are fits. But my point is this. I mean, it's really tough to hard press them right now because what are you going to hard press them with? There was no past. So obviously, and your number one quarterback, Van Dyke, was injured most of the year. So you have no coordinator. You have no offensive scheme. So to me, that's why things like that are essential to hire somebody. So you could go out and say, hey, listen, you know what? Alabama's got 3-4 kids right ahead of you, and they're pretty damn good. But you could come here and get in the mix right away. I mean, we have that opportunity. It might not be like that for a long time, but I think that any quarterback you bring in, and those two plus the young man from Georgia who is right in that mode as well. I mean, one of the better ones in the country, did well at all the Elite 11 competitions and passes the eye test and checks all the boxes as a prospect. But to me, we just once we hire an offensive coordinator and have an idea who it is and what their schemes are and, who they've worked with in the past, then game's on. But right now, I don't see how Miami could really be in the mix with a major star when they don't have anybody to kind of sell that to.
So if we learned anything today is let's hope we get these vacancies filled as soon as possible. Now I don't want to sacrifice quality over getting it done quickly. Like I'd rather get it done right, but ideally we need to get it done right and quickly. I think both of these things need to happen. But you know what did get done right? The Miami Hurricanes basketball team. They just demolished the Duke Blue Devils 81-59 last night. The 19th ranked Canes. Hopefully they're going to be moving up considerably in the next poll. Like Blue, it was absolute destruction. Jim Larinaga's team, they looked so organized. They were toying with Duke. 21 turnovers forced, and they were turning those turnovers into points. Norchad Omier ends up having a big game, leading Miami in scoring. Jordan Miller was the guy who started hot and got into double figures. Like Miami, basically, outside of I think Omier had a missed layup at one point where it's like he thought about either dunking it, didn't know what to. Outside of that, Miami couldn't put a foot wrong the entire game. Like it was absolute domination. And I think Jim Larinaga's team is going to be poised to make a big run here in the tournament.
Well, people like Joe Lunardi and those who follow the game understand that Miami, like Iowa State, a team that Miami beat last year, but really doing a tremendous. Those are the teams you got to watch out for because both of them are capable. And although Miami's should be out rebounded in every single game that they play, but they're not. Yeah. And that just shows you that they have shooting. And look at Nigel Pack. He didn't really even do much last night. He gave up shots. He had a putback.
He had a putback dunk. Other than that, it was really quiet.
Yeah. Other than that, and he's the guy. He's the go-to offensive threat, for the team. So, I look at what they have going on right now, and I every time I talk about Coach L, I just can't believe what an outstanding coach, one of the best in the country. I mean, I don't care what anybody's saying. Now he's getting that respect. When Seth Greenberg talks about you a lot, or some of the talking heads of college basketball, are praising you. You got to understand. I mean, and he's been around a long time, 45, 50 years in the game. Whenever I talk to our friend Joe Z, I always say, listen, I've got a picture of Coach Al when he was on the staff at Davidson, when he was on the staff of Virginia, when he was first, starting out with Terry Holland, who was a tremendous coach at Virginia. So, I remember the days when he started out and nobody knew who the heck he was. And he was just a really good mind. And they talked about him back in the 70s and 80s as someone to keep an eye on. And I'll tell you what, he loves this stuff. You know what? Here's a man in his 70s, but yet he relates to these kids like no other. I mean, he even last night after the game, we had an opportunity to watch him on the post game, and all he did was talk about what a great group of guys. He says, I get along with them. We eat together, we have a great time, and that's a huge ringing endorsement too. So I'm excited. They got Louisville and they got North Carolina, so it's these next couple of games are going to be pretty tough for them. But you know what? They as long as they play at home, watch out, because they haven't lost at home at all. I think they're 13-0 at home.
That's right.
And they compete like heck on the road. Yeah. I mean, even against Duke the last time around at Cameron. And that's not an easy place to play. Miami came within points of winning the game. Came up with a huge win over Clemson, who happened to be one of the hottest teams in the ACC. And they were like 12-1 at home. So, yeah, I mean, you can never count this, beating FSU to a pulp on the road. Mm-hmm. So I think that everybody understands around the country that Miami come dance time, you better look at your brackets and you better see where they are, because if they put them out west, watch out. Obviously there's going to be how many teams that we always have from the ACC. And I think the Big 12 this year is going to get a lot more teams. Like I said, you have Kansas and you have Texas and you have Iowa. I think Iowa State's the real surprised because they brought back everybody from a much improved team last year. And I knew that the coach, I watched him, he was actually at UNLV for a year and then moved on. But I can't say enough. And the women are doing real well. Katie's done a tremendous job, and she's got a lot of different personalities on the team. But and like I say, if you're going to make a living in the ACC, you better bring it every single night, and I don't care who it's against.
Amen to that. Guys, make sure you follow Larry Bluestein on Twitter at Larry Bluestein. Check out his work on AM 560 Sports WQAM on the Sixth Ring Cane Show. Blue, can't thank you enough for taking the time. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too, Alex. Thanks so much.
Love it, guys. Make sure if you can take some time to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We're going to do some shout outs on that later on in the week. We appreciate you guys so much. Make sure if you're watching us on YouTube, you hit the thumbs up, hit the like button, and subscribe. We will talk to you next time on another episode of Locked On Canes, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team